Okay, yes. Burrows.
Yes.
Buffalo. Yes. Moran.
Yes.
Burgess.
Yes, sorry. I was reading. Yes.
We have a quorum.
Approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any visitors, not on the agenda this time? This is the time when community members can make public comments to the board. Please be aware that the board cannot comment on anything that is said during this time. This is the only time on the agenda reserved for public comment. The forum will be limited to 30 minutes. Please limit individual comments to 4. Over here, on to central administration and fundraising.
Yeah, just one fundraising request for middle school choir, to hold bake sales at the their concert technique. It's a recommendation to approve as presented.
Make a motion to approve as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right, move on to overnight trips.
And that's review, so.
To curriculum.
Good to see you all again. That'd be a good time to touch base with you all with some things that are happening around the district. So put together just a short list, and if you have any questions at all, just let me know. Turn my calendar to March, I think we're all happy to see that, and that puts me at about 9 months on the job. So I feel like there's a lot going on, a lot of great things going on in the district. So like I said, I'll just kind of give you the rundown of some exciting things that are happening. Let me know if you have questions. Up first, we are doing quite a bit of essential standards work, and that's basically where we have an articulation of the essential learning objectives in all curricular areas. My primary focus has been the middle school and high school cross content areas, and they have already got a really good start on this in the area of literacy at the elementary. And so in anticipation for a solution tree coming in this fall, I think we've got a lot of good things in place, and we'll be able to kind of jump right into the work that they'll have for us coming into next fall and next school year. Related to curriculum, we're keeping an eye on, there is some math legislation that's being talked about in Des Moines. It's very similar to what's already in place for literacy. I don't know that it will be a huge adjustment here in West Liberty, but we of course want to listen in for suggested tools, resources, PD that the state may be offering. Some of the conversations that the state is talking about, we're already having some of those conversations here in district. So just something we're keeping an eye on to see if that does get mandated. Also along the lines of curriculum, we have an exciting opportunity coming in this week. I arranged with Mississippi Bend AEA to bring the planetarium into the elementary. So coordinated schedules with Adam Maria and Max, our PE teacher, to make sure we wouldn't be interrupting schedules too much. It's actually delivered tomorrow in the building, so we'll keep it in a safe place until we set it up after school on Friday. And it's the 3rd and 4th grade teachers that are coordinating how they want to have students go about that experience. They come in what are called cylinders. Essentially, there's different themes that relate to social studies and science. I don't know if any of you enjoyed those experiences when you were a student. I know I had the planetarium and the constellations when I was a kid, so it's really a memorable experience, and I'm excited our kids get to enjoy that here, and it will be connected to the learning that they've had in their CKLA works and their literacy work at the elementary. It's just going to bring some of that experience to life. So we're excited for that. They do have Dr. Seuss night. I believe it's the Thursday before spring break week, so we'll have it pulled down before then. So those are some areas related to standards. Essentially, some ongoing work that I've been doing throughout the year. I'm working with several teams in curriculum cycling. The first one is the high school ELA team. They're entering into their 2nd pilot and just checking out some resources. Along those lines, we are finishing up with a study sync pilot right now, and you may recall that study sync is what was adopted by the middle school. So we piloted that first just to kind of see what that would possibly involve, and giving teachers a chance to check out a 2nd curriculum. We'll start with Into Lit at the end of March, and we'll try that out for a few weeks, and then we'll have some conversations on what's the best fit for our students here in West Liberty. I'm also working with each of the essentials teams, so a quick rundown and update for each of those. Our PE teachers are finalizing their requests. Much of that equipment's coming through Gopher Sports, and I had to sit down with Adam Loria to kind of find out, okay, where do the basketballs go? And, you know, just kind of make sure I'm dotting my i's and crossing my t's as far as getting everybody what they need in terms of their PE equipment. So I'll be organizing and finalizing those requests. Music, similar as far as finalizing requests. We did just have a pretty exciting meeting on Friday. Leah Larson sat down with our elementary music teacher, and she's going to be filling out a Ryan grant for some instruments for ORF. I don't know if you're familiar with that style of teaching music, but she's going through the grant so that our students all have access to a variety of instruments. And she's a former employee at West Music, so we're hoping we can drum up a deal with West Music and maybe get a little discount there. So I'm excited that that may end up hopefully being a success for our young music teacher this year, and she's awfully excited about it. Our counseling department has done some piloting of curriculum as well. So they wrapped up their Character Strong pilot and have been working through a resource called Be Good People. And so an email has been sent out for them to touch base and kind of decide what our vision for that is, K-12. And art is right in line with that. They have piloted Art of Ed, and they're in the middle of what's called Davis Art right now, and just piloting those resources to see what is the best fit for us here in West Liberty. So those are all of my curriculum updates, and I'm gonna shift gears over to technology. So Sean, myself, and Brian Rance, with the cooperation of administration, we have teacher representation from each building. And we've had one meeting so far and developing our vision and mission for our technology committee here at West Liberty, specifically looking at that technology integration and how do we support not only our teachers with that, but also the student side. And so that is continuing to be a work in process. At our first meeting, we just assessed current state because obviously we're all using different forms of technology, but we would like to come up with a short list of ones that we really want to focus in on here at West Liberty. One of those possibly being Magic School. We have almost 100 teachers already that have used the free version of that. So I don't know if you're familiar with that app, but it has over 81 tools and they're teacher developed. It's a pretty awesome tool that we're looking at, possibly a district version of that. And there would be a teacher side and a student side and all the training that comes with that. But we have a lot of teachers already using it. So it was a logical one to kind of see what their thoughts were on pursuing, maybe implementing that on a deeper level. So those are all of my curriculum and technology updates at this time. Do you have any questions for me while I'm up here?
Do you feel like, so what would you say would be like, you could go either direction, tech or curriculum. What would you say your biggest roadblocks have been thus far, and are they still roadblocks at this moment?
Blocks. I would say first and foremost, I think just the spirit of doing what's best for our students is very prevalent. Roadblock wise, I think it's like anything, the scheduling for me, myself personally in this role is a little bit tricky because the PD calendar is mapped out in advance and the administrators, you know, kind of they weigh in on that too. So just making sure I partner with them and we're not overlapping, because that can be the kind of the trickiest part. It's nothing I haven't been able to navigate, and the administrative team's been fantastic because sometimes I just do have limitations and can't be in 4 meetings at the same time. So for those essential standards meetings, for instance, they were willing to spread those out over the course of about 2 months, because I think it's really important that I'm present for the whole meeting and not pulled in another direction. And I let them know that it's really important that the admin is present at those as well, so they can hear what those teacher conversations are. So we were able to work through it. I would say that that's been the biggest hurdle so far, probably on the curriculum side. Technology side, we're just getting started. And I will say, I do feel there's a commitment from me and Sean and the team that we really want to be mindful and make sure we reserve that PD time along the way, because we don't want this to be the, you know, one more thing in the, you know, glowing object over here that we all look at for a little bit and then walk away from, because it truly will be, I see it being an embedded part of our work with teachers and with students. It's just the way the world is right now. So we have to make that commitment to give it some time, give it the time that it needs.
I just had a couple questions. You said WARF. Can you describe what WARF?
It's actually an acronym. I think it's ORFF. And I read up on it. I ended up, before, when she initially contacted me, I don't have a musical background, so I reached out to the person that is at the state level and just said, is this ORF way of teaching, is that, how is that viewed by the state? And they sent me back an email on and on about how well aligned it is, and very excited that if you have a teacher that has that training, that's an exciting opportunity for us as well. So I just know it heavily involves instrument playing. And so even things like, if we have a kiddo that is wheelchair bound, for instance, are we equipped to give them similar opportunities for playing these instruments as any other kid that we might have? And so I just think it's a great opportunity for each student. Will have a chance at different instruments and the opportunity to play an instrument and not always have to take turns or sit a whole song out, that kind of thing. So, yeah, I'm on a learning curve about ORF as well. So, yeah.
So I ran into Sean when he was coming back from this technology conference.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you there.
Yeah.
AI, did you talk a lot about that at this conference?
There was a lot of breakout sessions along the lines of AI, both the benefits and the risks. It's taking off, and it's one of those things I think I maybe hit on the last time I visited with you. It's so embedded in a lot of everyday life jobs that might not even be related to education. And so I feel like it's our job to kind of learn about those things and take the fear away, right? Because like I went to one session, for instance, that was about writing specifically, because I've been in meetings before where, teachers might have some concerns, like, how do we AI proof our assignments, or how do we know they're not cheating? And there was one breakout session that I went into, and I know I'll probably butcher the comment that was made, but essentially it was like, our focus is on the wrong thing if we're worried about that, because you're only looking at the end product that the student is producing. We need to have processes built in place where we're watching kind of along the way and teaching that writing process along the way, because that's what removes the ability for a kid to just put a prompt in AI and copy and paste the final assignment in. So it might be presenting a task differently than we have done before, or monitoring the progress of that writing assignment maybe differently than we did before. And it's teaching students how to use it properly, because it is a tool that can really help enrich the learning experience when they're taught how to do it. So my hope is that by putting this committee in place and having representation from each level, we're going to have some really good conversations about how best to do that here.
So one last thing. So I was notified there was a bill of robotics being offered credit. Are you familiar with that, or do you know where?
So that's one of the legislative pieces that I don't have a lot of knowledge about. I know there's about 150 bills that we're going through a couple weeks ago. I attend, part of my role here in West Liberty is I'm committed to attending, it's called Curriculum Network meeting. And basically it's a statewide meeting that that's how the information gets pushed out from the state level out to schools. And so I'm always taking notes on that and sharing them back with admin. So I try to keep a pulse on what has the most likelihood of maybe coming our way and having impact. Haven't heard a lot about the robot one, the math one. They made a bigger deal about at the Curriculum Network, and I sit in on my next one this Friday. So I'm always kind of learning what's the up and coming through that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you bet. Anything else?
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, sure, you bet.
We're reviewing the agreement. 28. There's no voting on this.
No, I just kind of keep this on here every year, so the board is aware, that it's out there. We currently, I just looked today, we only have 2 students that are participating in this program, and they're both elementary age right now, so. Not necessarily that this would apply to them at this time, but you never know when someone might. do something like that. Just a heads up. And then the next one is the AEA 28E purchasing agreement for food service, so this basically just allows us to get some better pricing through our AEA contract. It's something that we do every year as well. This one does need a motion.
Does it, do they do with the menu too, or do they just purchase?
What do you mean?
Like, do they help does the AEA like intervene with menu suggestions? Or
No,
how
this
are
is
they
more
just
for-
like, you literally just purchase things from?
This is more for purchasing, so basically the AEA does the work of going out to bid. And
Okay.
then they hold the contract and we can use the contract. So,
Seems like they can tie together, right?
Yeah, I don't know, I just thought that, yeah,
Okay.
okay, so,
I'll make a motion to accept.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Alright, so this is our agreement for natural gas, so this will be our third year in the program. The agreement within the packet. So our total premium for this next year is $59,840.64. So that's a lump sum payment that comes out of the management fund. And then they take care of our monthly natural gas bills. Last year's premium was $63,000. And the decrease is due to the sale of the ELC. So we did get an amendment, some money back just a couple months ago when we sold that building. And then originally they sent me the agreement with the ELC on there by mistake, and they had like a little over 11,000 was allocated to that. So once they corrected it, then our premium went down by that. So it's kind of nice to see that back at us. So yeah, I think it's been working well, and yeah, I'm happy with it.
Any discussion? You want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The next one, our photo bids, we got 5 bids in from different photography companies. I reviewed with some of the admin and decided on HR imaging. Was the best fit for us. Price wise, as far as like packages that parents can buy, it was the most reasonable of any of them. And the products they provide were just as good as anything. And a lot of perks with them as well, so.
Like the online, all that other stuff, like paid online. and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. And then they also have, we receive commission from them, which some photo companies don't really do that anymore. So just another little perk. And then they also, we get a sign-on bonus as well for going with them. So this will just be a 1 year, and then we have the option to extend if we're happy with everything.
Any motions?
I'll make a motion.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. And then,
Now you gotta listen to me.
the fun one.
Yeah. All right, so just to look at the budget for next fiscal year. Time's coming up where we have to have everything, so it's due the end of April, but it's when we start looking at things, and we have to have our public or our proposed tax notice out, or not finalized because nothing's final, but the preliminary one has to be finalized so the county can send out those papers to everyone in the county. So by March 5th is the day that has to be out there. Just to look at our. All right, so look at the amendment. This is kind of where I'm at. Not set in stone. I'm gonna keep monitoring it just to make sure. There's 4 areas where we have to basically budget enough of our actual spend, otherwise we get like a nasty note on our audit. So a couple areas where I'm increasing is the non-instructional programs. This is like the food and food service account. Mainly it's due to our participation was up, the summer months increased, and then the increase in food costs along with that. And then the other expenditures, that increase is just due to timing of capital projects around year end last year, and then what I think might come in this year. But that's always a hard one, but they're safe and sorry on amending that. All right, so looking at new money for next year. This is with SSA at 2%. As you know, that hasn't been set yet, but that's kind of what I'm using to base it off of. Assuming that's what happens, we'll hope for 2.25, but who knows? As always, enrollment is the primary driver of funding we receive. So this up here shows static enrollment. It's a hard number to predict. Looking at some of the aging of our enrollment, it's possible we could see a decline in our trend. We have some larger class numbers in our middle and high school right now, and the classes coming up aren't as big. For example, pre-K through fifth, the average class size is about 88, while the average class size from grades 6 through 12 is 96. So naturally, if we're just looking at the aging out of those classes and bringing in around the 85 mark or so, we might see that steadily decline until we kind of get there, and maybe that's where we'll stay, or I don't know. It's hard to tell. I know there's housing going up, but it's not moving very fast, so it's kind of hard to know that. But looking at the new money trend based on those, with 2%, we'd have a budget guarantee of 15,000. So that's just promising that we get at least 1% more money than the previous year. So $97,000, not a lot. Just raises in itself kind of swallow that up real quick. So would love to see a higher SSA, but I don't think we're gonna get there. So this is just a look at open enrollment, kind of our trend, because the certified enrollment, it counts our resident students open enrolled out in that certified number. So then you have to back out all the kids going out. So if you just look at our trend, these first two up here, that would have been the start of like when that diversity plan went away. So we were actually net open enrollment in for a few years, which is pretty awesome. And then you see it gradually shifting, and that net open enrollment goes negative. We did see a slight positive trend in this last year. So, you know, if we can continue to pull kids in with, you know, some of the offerings we have and the facilities that we have, maybe we can make that go up. And then this is just kind of correlating dollars with that. So it's like the net dollars that we would have been bringing in, and now like the net dollars that we're sending out to other schools. So you can have an idea of how much that really impacts. And then I just did one more money trend with SSA at 2.25, just to show actual new money isn't a ton more. The budget guarantee does go away. So 1.08% new money, still not great, but next is the tax rate overview. So with SSA at 2%, for purposes of estimating the prelim rate, it's 13.1054. Last year we were at 13.08850. If it were to go up to 2.25, our tax rate would actually fall around like 13.07 area. That is because the budget guarantee is all property taxes. So once we don't need the budget guarantee anymore, that helps reduce our levy rate. This is just a slide I included. I kind of include every year just to talk about property taxes for the general fund, made up of property tax dollars and state aid. So they make up about 1/3 of total funding in our general fund, which is where we pay for teachers and programming and all that fun stuff. That's just the components of the property tax. So we have a uniform levy, additional levy. We do have an instructional support levy. We aren't allowed to have a cash reserve levy yet. I'm forecasting possibly next year, and it's probably gonna be the year after that, that we might get into that ability to actually have a cash reserve levy. So this is just what the tax rate is made up of. Obviously, you see the big portion is the general fund. The purple and green are both the PEPAL, and then the next biggest item on there is the management fund. That's the one levy fund where we can kind of pick what we want to levy. It's the only one where we kind of have a say in it. And just to have a closer look at that. This is the levy control graph, just to kind of give you an idea of how little control we kind of have over it. So that 67% is all state controlled. That's solely from the school foundation formula. The board controlled levies is that regular PEPAL amount, the management, like I mentioned, instructional support, and then cash reserve, which we don't have any. And then the voter controlled levies only makes up 9%. That's the voted PEPAL, and then debt service, we don't have any of that either. So really just voted PEPAL for the voter side. And on top of that, to kind of justify why our management levy is where it is, because like I said, it's kind of a number I could pick. So this is just to show why. I have 510,000 in our budget for that. And if you're looking here at the reserve equivalent in years, you kind of want to be right around that 1 to 1.1. That's because your management fund, you're levying property taxes throughout the year. So you don't just get all of that money up front in July. But your bills, you're paying insurance, so you're paying that all in July 1. So in order to not go negative in the management fund, you want to have about a year worth of revenue in that account. So as you can see, that 510,000, those property and liability and workers' comp, those aren't exact. We haven't gotten our renewals, but that's kind of where they told us to plan on them being. That natural gas is the accurate amount that I showed you. So that's just kind of looking at why I have it at 510,000, because it seems large and it seems like it's really jumped. But as you can see, we've been those insurance rates are just going up like crazy, as I'm sure you guys all know in your personal lives. So this right here, this is what's going to be sent mailed to every resident in our district, basically showing the highest property tax rate that we can set for fiscal year 26. Like I said, after we know more details, SSA, everything, it'll be more accurate. But it can't be any higher than that 13.1. And the property tax rate comparison at the bottom, it really just kind of sets people up to question us. They basically put in this property tax comparison and then say that all property valuations are growing by 10%. You have property that grows by 10% every single year, that's astronomical. Like, I would love to have that property. So it makes it look like we're changing the tax rate by 12.69%. We're not. Ours is going up maybe 2 cents. So I think it's just an important thing to know, like, this makes it look scary, but really we're looking at that 13.08 versus the 13.10. So a little bit of property tax rate history. 22 would have been the last year of the service, I believe. Actually, might have been before that, but enrollment kind of dropped there, so that probably is what that is. So we've stayed pretty consistent the past few years, so people usually like that. And this is just a look at our unspent authorized budget, which is it's what they look at for financial health of a district. So our current fiscal year is our first full year without any of the ESSER funding. You can see how quickly that unspent authorized budgets, the second line from the bottom kind of drops. Just looking at 25 to 26, it's like $500,000. Which is a big portion. It's high right now. We don't want it to be that high, but it's trying to figure out how to get it spent down without making us go crazy in the hole. So we continuously monitor. Sean and I have conversations on what makes sense. We look out at future years when things naturally happen, natural attrition that maybe we don't need to replace or things like that. That's what we want to look at it now versus, okay, let's just hire, and then 3 years down the road, we have to get rid of everyone. We don't want to do that. So just always having that in the back of our mind. It's really hard to portray like this when you have this big of a balance out there because people don't know why we're not spending it. But as you can see, pretty soon it's going to drop pretty significantly. I think my forecast right now, and if we didn't change a thing and expenses increased by 3% every year, we'd be negative $400,000 on our unspent balance. So it is an important number that we have to really look at. And that's, you know, our preferred UAB would probably be around the 3.6 million to 4 million mark. That'd kind of be where just a comfortable one. But yeah, getting there in a financially sustainable way is the hard part. And then this is just a look at SSA versus new money versus teacher settlements over the past few years. Just to show state SSA has been about around that 2% mark for quite a few years. Our new money hasn't been great. Any of those years with our drop in enrollment. We did have a couple years where it was a little bit better, but our teacher settlements have been much higher than that for the past several years. And I think it just goes to show we are trying to get, you know, the money in the teachers' pockets, but we also have to make it make sense. Because if this trend keeps going, we're not going to have any money to do that with. So just something we always have to look at. And then I think it's just, if you have any questions over that riveting information.
I think you did a good job of explaining the how quickly it can go downhill. I mean, we've looked at the models a million times at this point, but it's easy to forget how, like, if we did a 4% versus a 3% pay increase, like the money disappears in like 2 years instead of 20. It's insane how fast it goes. So it is definitely like a very touchy game trying to spend that UAB down, but then also just like properly placing it throughout the district.
Right. Because yeah, so many of those expenses are recurring, you know, so you can't just look at it, silo. So it's hard to keep up.
And who had forecasted the insurance going crazy like it has been the last, I don't know how long.
Yeah, both property and health insurance. Yeah. We have seen some positive trends though on switching over to our partial self-funded. So that helps. That hopefully we only have 6 months of data, obviously, but it was all trending in the right direction, and hopefully building that up can kind of even out some of those spikes when we see them.
Do you want to have any questions? Do you have any? First reading of board policy.
So this policy is related to class size. And the reason it's being brought to the table here is more so for the last paragraph, which references dual language and dual language at each grade level. So in K5, it says it should be limited to 3 sections, which I don't know that that really has ever been an issue, and really none of this really has until this year. And then it says, in addition, no grade level K-5 should have fewer than 2 sections that are English only, not dual. So this is kind of an anomaly here that we've run into. We have a kindergarten class that is around 64 students, 63, 64 students, which is just not, it's a total amount. We generally, like Abby said in her financial report, around 80 to, I think our largest class right now is 117. So to have one come in at 65 or 63 is just extremely unusual. So we were talking about that with Kirk and really trying to take a look at, so what does that mean, for us? And we try to maximize our dual classes. So in this case, we'd have 2 dual, hopefully, we try to have 2, but then, based on the board policy here, it says we have to have 2 English, so then we'd only be able to have 1 dual, which would max us out at about 22 dual students in that grade, and then 2 English classes, English only. Then we get into, the intent of our dual is to help our non-English speaking students, as well as to provide a service to teach students a second language as well. So if we try to do 2 sections of English only, so we take the current numbers that we have, 63, 64, and we divide that into 4 sections. We have, we still have our dual 22, 22, or 21, 21, I think is what we currently have, if I remember right from what Kirk said. This year in kindergarten, so we're talking next year, 1st grade. And next year we'd have 2 English only classes of about 10. That would be great if that was a financially sustainable, good model to follow. The struggle is having 10 students in a class, and then having in 2 classes. Basically, that's an extra teacher. We don't really follow that model anywhere else, and for budgetary reasons. I mean, we'd love to have all our classes at 10 and hire 30 more teachers, and just not feasible. So I've been talking with Kirk and with Abby and trying to figure out, how can we meet the students' needs in 1st grade next year, those 1st graders, and adequately serve our dual students, but then not have to divide, that small group of 20, 21 kids or 22 into 2 sections. So that takes us to where we're at now. With this anomaly of a year, it would be advantageous to just switch this policy or even omit that last line there, then give us the flexibility to have 1 English section for this coming year in 1st grade. I don't know if that makes sense or questions about that.
I would argue this is not an anomaly because I think Brenda probably remembers me about 7 years ago, when my daughter was entering kindergarten, there was 28 kids that were going to be placed on a dual language wait list that were not going to get in. And so a lot of us parents went and said, we're here because of this dual language program. Really, could you open up another section? And it was very, very clear that we needed to keep 2 English sections open to benefit the kids who opt out of dual language, because everybody does not have to be in this program. So at that time, it was definite no. I think 3 kids got in off the wait list that year. It was kind of the opposite effect. So kids that wanted to be in dual couldn't. My concern is that if you have 22 kids, 20 kids in this English only section, what do we do when kids move into the district, get held back or choose to be held back, drop out of the dual language program throughout the year? And now we have a class size that's 25 and 2 dual classes that are 18, 19, whatever they are. I think that it's really important to allow those smaller class sizes, because we know that people aren't getting in later, they're opting out later. So that's just my opinion on it. I think it would be a disservice to the kids that are all in this huge class size. A lot of kids on IEPs, full-time paras that are gonna be all grouped together in this class and then later add more students on top of that to this one English only class.
Is it, I guess, maybe I'm naive, is it only, the head count of 20, I'm just using preschool, I'll use kindergarten, 22. Is that equivalence? Like equivalent students, so like IEP students would obviously take more services, is that, or is it literal, like children, 22 children?
22 students.
Okay. I guess I was kind of thinking along the same lines of like, what if they all have IEPs, you know? A class size of 22 with no IEPs is very different than a class size of 22, all with IEPs. Obviously, we do anything we can to balance that, but we got to think best and worst when we're thinking about the policies.
Yeah, and Kira brings up good points. Kirk and I have talked about all of this, and it could be a matter we get kids move in. So how do you handle that? Well, if it happens here the remainder of the year, then we could certainly post, the spring, summer, to add on a section. We could have kids move and have a smaller class, so it could, shrink the total number of students. Could be where, let's say we get to that 22, 23, 24 student mark. So we hire a classroom para. Right now, we don't have classroom paras to get us through the year. We looked at how many students are special ed that would be in that group, and it's, I think it was 3 to 4 is what Kirk said. One would be self-contained, so it wouldn't really be in with that mix during the day. So it's a tough one. I mean, there's pros and cons to doing it both ways, and I see it in both sides. I'm just coming at this a little bit more from just the cost side of things. I mean, it's a tough one because we're right there. If we did have 5, 6 kids move in, if this class was 5, 6, 7 kids bigger, it'd make it a much easier choice. But where it currently sits, that's where it gets a little dicey, a little tricky. If we didn't have, that wording in the policy, it would just give us the flexibility. So should we grow, we could then boom, immediately change, post or figure out a solution, add on a pair, whatever it is. But we could just kind of ride this out and just see where it goes. And if the numbers stay at that 63, 64, we'll be sitting pretty good staffing for next year. So I don't know, Kirk, is there anything else you want to add to that? Or Brenda?
No, it's a unique case for sure. As small as it is, there are 4 students that have an IEP in English only right now. 5, I take that back. 1 is, like Sean said, self-contained, so he is not in the classroom that often. He gets most of his core instruction in the special ed classroom. And so I do share the same concerns of move-ins and things like that, and students leaving the dual program, because you're right here that we see that happen as the kids get older. Parents want in when you're kindergarten, 1st grade, and then once you're that wait list goes away after 1st grade, then you start to see more students fall off into the English only side. I think that's something that we could absolutely look at on a case by case, year to year basis. So if you started with 3 next year and then kids move in, you can add that section. If you see that within 2nd grade and you have more kids move in by the end, there's we couldn't say that, hey, in 2nd grade, we need to go to 2 English only and have that be a year by year case within that. It definitely is a tough one. I know that I've had conversations with dual teachers that do share frustrations of having 22 kids in their class, and they look across the hallway and there's 9 in that class, and it's the equity part of that too, for when they're looking at that is hard, it's frustrating. And as kindergarten, those teachers know that they're always going to have 22 because it's the 1st year, and that's how that is. Looking at the dual wait list, while we are at 21, we don't have anyone on the wait list. I take it back, we have 1 kid on the wait list, and that's it. So I went through quite a few families this past week asking, hey, would you like to go? Would you like to go in? And as the four, only one of the four wanted to move in. The other three said, actually, we're good. We don't want to move to the dual program. We're going to stay English only. So we've got one more family to talk to, and there's no one else on the list as well.
Would it be easier to have it more open in wording then and make judgments by like make judgment calls by year, or I'm just trying to think of ways, because like Kara said that when it came up with her, it would have been easy if it was more flexible. And then like if each year is gonna fluctuate, then maybe having more of an open and like honest discussion about it than just having set policies. I don't know. Just thinking that maybe, being more flexible, but I don't know.
It does make a difference to your point, of the amount of IEPs and support that class would need. So you don't want to have, that Dawn and I have had that conversation of you don't want all of the students who have an IEP to be within one classroom so that you can, because then you start to meet certain level numbers too. So that does play a big role in that as well.
So,
I was just gonna say, when that policy was adjusted, the intention of it, what played into effect was keeping the integrity of the program. In so much as the model we use is a 50-50 model, meaning that the students are spending 50% of their instructional time in English, 50% in Spanish, but also 50-50 model as far as language. So we strive to have up to 2/3 of the students in each grade level that are native Spanish or Spanish, and 1/3, a max of between 1/3 and 50% of native English speakers. And so when this was added, the 2 sections of English only, part of the reason behind that was to keep that integrity. We had a very large wait list. We didn't have a lot of Spanish speakers on it. And so to have added another section would have moved away from that 50-50 language model, where it would have moved more into like a one-way language model where you had everybody learning Spanish and the majority of them already speaking English. So the premise behind adding that language, keeping 2 sections of English only, was to also keep the integrity of the dual language program. So just as a little background, I think what Becky said, it is kind of strict language. Is there a way to modify the language so that it were more open or more flexible? Is there to consider the number of sections of dual language that would be proportional to the overall class size while maintaining the integrity of the program? That's wordy, I don't know, but I think that then there's flexibility in that if, as long as you're maintaining within your dual language sections, that language balance, then it potentially could be only 1 section of English only, or there might be 2 or 3. I don't know if that's a way to modify the language a little bit, to give that flexibility, but also keeping the idea of why this was originally made, and that was to truly protect the integrity of the program, making sure we were adhering to that 50-50 model of dual language.
That's good context.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're not only looking at this policy as a dual issue, the reason we put class sizes in place is to make sure all of our students are, getting the education that we need. If we're only looking at the dual part, saying we need to make sure, we need to also look at the English only kids that are opting out or are not in it for whatever reason, making sure that they're also being not overlooked.
I think I'm sensing the challenge of the balance you're trying to find here. And after the budget conversation, I think it's more complex. I would refer to your recommendation on this, and I think the history that you have, Brenda, understanding that, and you're kind of in the trenches perspective too on what's going on.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's not an easy conversation and hard, and definitely why I agree with you that, care that wanting to adhere to those numbers as well. That we're right at it. Now, with the numbers we have right now, we're right at that point, so that it's paying very careful attention to who registers, how many kids are registering and going from there. And
I guess if we could find a language that would adhere to that, and then also like Kara saying, that's mindful of the English and maybe not so strict, that maybe be more flexible, because we will change in the district, we will grow, we will add, we will have budget constraints, we won't have budget constraints. So maybe having a language that was.
What's the two business on it, but like, what's the break even on like a class size in terms of like costing substantially too much? Like theoretically to offset a teacher and maybe some of the overhead, you probably need like 10 to 12 students, right? Other than that, you're absolutely losing a ton of money on that class size, right? Like, you know what that might be. Because if we're saying that like it's not fiscally responsible, which I totally can agree with, to break two classrooms up to be 10 to 12 students each, and that doesn't make financial sense, like obviously we have to be cognizant of that. I totally agree, but that one class then would be 24 to 25 students, and then they start not being served as well. So like, where is that break point on the financial side, so we can determine where's the break point on the education side too? Do we know?
I mean, it's
That's a tough question.
a tough question because you're getting funding per student, but you're paying for a lot more than
Right.
a teacher, so I don't.
Well, I mean, if you think about it from a high level perspective, like a teacher's salary plus benefits plus a little bit extra, you need that 8,000 per student. You need 13 students just to offset their salary, right?
Correct.
So then, okay, let's add a little bit for facilities, giving all, you know, the overhead, right? At a certain point, you hit like, okay, that's the minimum viable number of students to have a classroom and not completely lose your butts. We're not here to make money by any
say-
means, but
Yeah, I get what you're
I
saying.
get what you're saying.
About the only way I could answer that is, like school districts, they always say around 80% is your personnel costs. So some are 78, 79, 80, 81, 82. You start varying too much from that amount, and then that's when you really start getting yourself in trouble if you get much over that.
yeah, because like, I guess where my head went to initially before hearing people give pretty good points was like, well, it'd be pretty easy just to change the verbiage to say no less than one section. That way it maintains the fact that we have a guaranteed section. I know that that's been a problem in the past. But then also saying, well, that class can't be huge because that'd be the loophole there. You just say, well, we'll stick 60 kids in one classroom and boom, we've got our one classroom, right? But then saying like, well, that one can't be any larger than either the mandated amount or a little bit of variant to be able to offset in situations like this where it might be 25 students, but maybe there's no IEPs in that classroom, or maybe this is an easier classroom than what we're used to, and then you have that choice, I guess.
You'd have to have weighted, right, students,
Right.
you'd have to call it weighted.
I guess where that comes into play, you don't do that at any other level, like, we're not looking at a second grade classroom and saying, oh, what's their level? What's their weighted? We're looking at 22 kids,
I mean, should we though?
so.
I mean, to be honest, like.
I mean, you're gonna have extra supports for those
Yeah,
IEP
that's true.
kids too. It's not just the classroom teacher taking on all of that as well. So. Just looking any other class size, if they would be in this 22 ballpark, we'd say that's fine. So I guess that's where, like he said, the equity comes into.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of hedging for if a couple students join too, right? Because like if we're already at the 22, we just. If we're 22 in every classroom, then what do we do? We just have them leave? I don't know, like, what happens? Well, that's what I hope for, right? I just want to be sure that that's the case.
I mean, I might be speaking out of turn, but if you 66 would be the number where it runs at 22, right? So if you get to 67, and that's clearly a student that will be in English only because dual will be full. Then is that, you're like, all right, so you reach that number and then you split, and then you're at 12 and 11 would be, but. If you're following, by following those guidelines, that would be more or less your number would be 67, if that's, if we're going off the numbers on the board. The only way to know that is to know who registers. And let's see, the hardest part would be the kids that went there. Or move out of the dual, or they decide to, they don't, that's not for them anymore.
Do you see a lot of that in the first grade or in the?
This year, we've seen more kids move from, I want to say it's 3 that we've moved in from the English to the dual, but that's because of kids moving out and then a spot opens up. We haven't had anyone in first grade that has left. I've seen it more. We've had it more happen in kindergarten, but not necessarily in first grade. Because most of the kids that move in first grade are the families that are really waiting, like, I want in. And then if they stayed long enough, they are in it, and then it's moving out. We haven't had anybody really over the last 3 years that I remember switch in first grade. We've had it in kindergarten, other grades where kids moved from dual to English only, but first grade, it's pretty consistent unless somebody moves out of district. At least since I've been here.
Yeah, I think Brenda, keep me honest here. I think it's more like 5th grade. We start seeing people dropping out of the dual program in mass, like in
yeah.
bigger numbers. It's 1 or 2 here and there, but like 5th gets tough again. And then I want to say like
We
junior
we
year.
see a few in 5th grade, not as many, as. When it's moving to a different building, we do see some went from elementary to middle school, and then in 7th grade, when now they have the opportunity to also be involved in extracurriculars, then we do see a few more drop there. It's because of time. It's extra work, right? Extra homework, extra. So we do see some students choose to drop out and do it then.
Thank you.
This is the first reading. We're not voting
No,
tonight.
and there's a lot of work
What's
to do.
coming up at the next meeting? We will be voting then. But in the meantime, kind of taking the stuff into consideration, what you're hearing. You present what you think we should do, or tweak it a little bit, I guess.
I guess I go back to the original comment. I'd probably remove that last sentence and then we're not handcuffed by that last sentence of saying you must have 2. Again, could we easily end up with 2 next year? Sure. But this would just, maybe we have 3 kids move away at the end of this year and then, our numbers are even smaller. To me, it's just about the financial aspect of, do we support 2 classes of 10 kids paying, 2 full-time teachers, or do we combine those? Just see where that takes us. If we have to adjust along the way, we can adjust. Classroom para, hire another teacher. Kirk said, I know they're not easy to find August or whatever, but I mean, there are options there. That's, I guess that would be, that is the rationale for considering altering the policy.
Superintendent.
Yeah, okay, we're ready to move on.
All right.
So first of all, I'll give a little activities center update. So we're in the schematic design phase of the process. So earlier today, we met with the architect team to review initial plans of the facility. They displayed some 3D renderings with detailed layouts of various rooms. We provided them some input on the design and discussed a few changes for their team to update for our next meeting. I believe that'll be in about 4 weeks. And then they also indicated that Terracon will be out to take soil bore samples for determining specific design of the footings. So once they get the soil analysis completed, they'll know the depth of the footings, the size of the footings, with all of that for holding that building. So as of right now, things are still looking good and remaining on schedule for this building to be completed in the fall of 2026.
Did they find the places around the geothermal then? Was the other
Yes,
thing? Okay,
yes.
so they did.
So geothermal well begins near that sidewalk between the high school and the athletic complex sidewalk that comes down. There's a, they call it a vault, and it's right off the sidewalk. And from there, lines come out. They weren't sure, based on the schematics that they had from like 20 years ago, exactly where those lines ran. They actually showed the lines running more east-west from that sidewalk, which would have been right under the building. But the head pipe of the geothermal well, the headline, has tracer wires on it. And so they're able to come out and locate the main that comes off the vault. And that ran pretty much, went south from the vault, so kind of along the sidewalk, and then veered off east-west, which opened up more of that section of land between the high school and the softball field and athletic complex. So that was a good thing. So that allows us to put the blueprint of the building, the footprint of the building within that section of the header of that geothermal. It allows us to put that on the other side of that, so we're not crossing or setting on top of the geothermal. So that is that's a good thing. Now Terracon had come out soil bore, because they didn't want to come out and soil bore and then end up hitting a geothermal line. So from that header pipe, then the geothermal lines, there's two sets of them that then run north-south, and those are like 500-foot lines. One is 20-foot deep, another is 35-foot deep. And so there's a lot going on underground there. We just wanted to ensure that we didn't damage anything or add up, greatly increase the cost of this project. So that was a relief. That was very positive news.
I missed the meeting with the conflict. Was there anything else discussed about? I know the design.
Here was there.
The design,
and
the
we-
detail, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we looked at, so they had the 3D layout of the building, they had the track outside of the main beams, and they had the track inside. I think we're looking to go with the track outside of the main beams, frees up a little more space below, gives us some storage underneath the track. We looked at the weight room, batting cages. They have some models with batting cages upstairs, downstairs, pros, cons. We talked about,
The noise levels involved.
yeah, noise levels. If you got hitting going on, weightlifting, soccer practice going on, it could get kind of chaotic and hectic in there. So is there something we could do to maybe help baffle a little bit of the sound from the upstairs between the field and the upstairs or the open areas of the facility? Talked a little about storage, making sure we had some baseball, softball storage by the nets. Yeah, just.
There is a track, right?
Yeah, so 3-lane track, and that will be about 14 feet high. The outside walls, the outside structure is about 30 feet. And then it has a slight gradual increase. I don't know if they gave us a definite peak in the middle. I suppose you're looking at about 36, 40, maybe 40 feet in the center. So it'll be big, plenty of room. Yeah, lots of room. So the track, just the exterior beams, the exterior structure. There's two ways they can do the track. They can put the track inside and then kind of hang it attach it to the beams, then hang it from the roof, come up from the roof and support it. Or they can go outside of the beams and I'm not exactly sure how they stabilize all that, but they said it would be, very secure and stable, from the outside as well, probably, there's cost involved in both ways of doing it. But by having it on the outside gives us another 9 feet, on the, outside of the, turf practice field.
That looks nicer.
Yeah, it looks nicer, yeah, for sure. And then underneath, in that extra 9 feet, on both sides, we'd have, a hundred and, what is it? 100 and, let's say about 150-foot section, 9 feet wide of just storage. So you could put equipment, people could stand there on the side, and you'd have room for people, to observe, for if you had a little tournament going on in there for teams, to be off the main playing area. And then if you have whatever equipment you have, whatever soccer equipment, band equipment, flag equipment, just whatever, different teams out there, could store their stuff on the sides that are needed. So once we get better renderings, I know it's probably hard to visualize, with me talking about this, but once we get some more concrete, better renderings,
I
then
think I've been into.
we'll definitely get those shared with everybody.
You were talking about
Basketball,
Tipton.
right?
Tipton has,
But there's this.
They don't have an upper section, do
they don't have an perception, but is it kind of like that? Like it'll be how like, they have like little bleachers off the side, but I don't think they have an upper section.
That's all basketball, right?
No, it has volleyball. I mean, we played
Well, but
volleyball.
It
it's
was
at
like
sports,
multi-use,
right? Yeah.
it was like multi-use, and
This one won't have any of that. It's mostly turf.
Just mostly turf field.
No,
So this will-
batting cages.
Yes.
Okay.
Golf.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I probably wasn't describing that very well. The turf is going to be 40, it'll be a football field wide. So about
Okay.
150 or what is it, about 50, around 50 yards wide. It'll be 40 yards long.
It's like more like an
Those
indoor track. more
Indoor track, yeah, indoor turf.
like Indoor turf.
And that'll be just a big, that'll be the biggest part of the building. And the track will go elevated 14 feet up around the perimeter of that turf area. So it'd be a decent size.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the project? All right, and a few other things, Hall of Fame, you might have heard, that we're, starting a new athletic Hall of Fame. That's being formed now, and we're currently taking applications for the first West Liberty Hall of Fame class. And just a reminder, nominations are due March 15th for the inaugural class. It's kind of exciting to have, and that'll be displayed in the, entrance to the high school, on the north side entrance, where you go in for activities and events. Also, we have some commendations. Kirk, I want to give a shout out to the teachers, office staff, and interpreters for their flexibility with the last conferences due to inclement weather.
Oh, it's gonna happen again. Yes.
And also for all their work on the preschool and kindergarten registration. So it is that time of year already for registration. Yeah, Kirk and Brenda also went to the job fair day, so appreciate you guys.
The Hawks.
going to the-
We got,
Job fair.
dressed appropriately today.
Any just quick summarization, feedback on that? Not to put you guys on the spot, but
They had some, I think, promising elementary candidates and saw more Strat 1 or Strat 2 candidates than we've seen in a very long time. And actually only saw one high school social studies candidate, which is also very unusual because there are usually about, 30 of them. So, but I don't think it was as well attended. We decided it wasn't as well attended this year as it was in previous years. But we have UNI on Friday and Iowa State next Monday. So
very good.
I will wear an Iowa State bow tie on Monday. Where I've got the colors for each state. It's school, so I will wear it.
Very
Absolutely.
nice, very nice.
we did have more, some younger students that maybe aren't ready for jobs yet, but there to check things out. So some people that took down their names that I want to come student teach in your district. Yeah, we always welcome student teachers. So
Fantastic.
that's
sure.
leave that way also.
Yeah, thank you both for doing that.
Yeah, and
So-
we've got quite a few student teachers in the elementary right now, which is great too. So it's perfect. I love having student teachers in the spring because then it's basically a working interview the entire year. If that's something that they're, you know, if they're willing to stick around. Yeah, so.
For sure. Strat 1 and 2 are special ed teachers. Just wondering what that meant. So it's good that there's more special ed candidates out there. It's fantastic.
Yes.
Other commendate or make functions. Okay, other commendations, from Ms. Maria, congratulations to Pearson Hall on earning all academics, state, through the Iowa Girls Association this winter. From Ms. Vernon, congratulations to Paola Costa Rivera. She is a member of the 8th grade math counts team that competed in Muscatine with 4 other schools. Team came in second and Paola was second overall with a score high enough to qualify for the state competition. So kudos to her. That's pretty impressive. Also, we've had some wrestling success. So congratulations to Riker Dangler on the 6th place state wrestling, getting on the podium there, as well as Caden Wheelie, 6th place at state as well. And then Ryan Cassidy and Briggs Collins, who both qualified for the state tournament. And then on the girls' side, congratulations to qualifier Kylie Collins and then Eileen Aragon, who was 4th place in the state tournament. And then Bricia Garcia Vasquez, 3rd place in the state tournament. And then our first girls state champion, Sylvia Garcia Vasquez. So pretty cool. She will always be the first state champion. So pretty neat. So a lot of success there. A lot of hard work and I'm glad to see their hard work and efforts paying off. And then now shifting to FFA. The West Liberty FFA received a very high accomplishment. You might have saw this on social media. Cale Dahlfeld was selected as a Star Over Iowa finalist. So he's recognized in the top 16 out of 20,000 FFA members. Star Award recognizes students who have developed outstanding agricultural skills in their supervised agricultural experience programs, competencies through their career development programs, and demonstrated outstanding management skills. These finalists will be interviewed and an overall winner in each area will be announced on stage with their teachers, parents, and administrators during the 4th general session of the Iowa FFA State Leadership Conference. So outstanding, Cale, way to go and good luck to you as you move on there. Also this past weekend, we had several students participate in the district FFA conference in in Eldridge. I believe Mr. Morris said that all the students that could move on, that participated and could moved on, are moving on to the state competitions. So congratulations to all those students and Mr. Morris. Best of luck at the upcoming state competition in April. That's pretty impressive. Every kid from districts moving on to state. That's amazing. And then last, great job show choir this weekend in Central Lee. They're a very entertaining group of performers to watch. And our district band concert is tomorrow at 7. And then our district choir concert is Thursday at 7. So a lot of great fine arts activities coming up here as well. So that's all I have for today, unless you have any questions.
I did want to volley back a commendation to you, Sean, actually. So centrally, if you guys don't know, is in Donaldson. It's a heck of a drive. And Sean still decided to go to the show choir competition. So no skin in the game other than the affiliation with the school. So it is nice to see that, and we do appreciate that.
I heard they had to get sloppy joes. So get down.
It's very cool. It's very cool.
No.
They have where the community can come watch them, right? This Thursday?
Yeah, I'll be out of town in New Orleans. So I wanted to get to see him.
Yeah, I might try to go Thursday. It might be, it'll be good. It's a good show.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, if you get a chance, check them out. Jack does a great job with them. I mean, again, just talk about hardworking kids. It seems to be kind of the theme here, but we have a lot of them and great instructors, and yeah, they put together a nice show, and it's very, very entertaining. So for sure.
personnel, not a whole lot, one resignation and one hire to replace that resignation for, halftime ELC for, new 3-year-old. Or, well,
Well, it's they're
they've been
replacing,
there,
yeah,
right?
they're
Yeah,
replacing
so
each other.
That are just there in the mornings, so.
One leaving, one going.
All right,
I'll make a motion to approve.
a second,
I'll second.
all those in favor?
Uh,
Aye. All right, then the future agendas. So the next meeting will be March 17th at 6 o'clock. Send the budget, that when we will just do the hearing dates and stuff.
Yeah, that's just to set the date and time for public hearings. The public hearings will be the April. Since we have to do 2 now, April, what is that, 7? That first one?
Yes.
7. So April 7th will be our first one, and then April 21st will be the second one. So hopefully we get some more information from legislation before then. So. Yeah, and then another one that possibly will be on here. Ag issues team may come and present at the next meeting, depending on if all the kids are around, with that being spring break. Zach was gonna get back to me on that. And I'm hoping that our auditors will have our audit report for next week, approved as well.
And we'll have second reading at 6:03 AM.
Right, any other items to add? All right, take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.